Hey guys. So, I had the privilege and the pleasure and the frustrating experience. That sounds British. I had the privilege and the pleasure and the frustrating experience of seeing this little gem the other night. It wasn't really that little of a gem because it was like 2 hours, 2 freaking hours and 51 minutes. That said, it was called, if you haven't figured it out already, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And they had to decorate Hollywood when they were filming it as if it looked as though it was the summer of '69, or, well, thereabouts. It was 1969 in general, because it wasn't just the summer. But what it centered around, although you wouldn't know it from watching the film so much, because Charles Manson only had about 2 minutes of screen time, if even that, was the Charles Manson murders, leading up to the Charles Manson murders in the summer of 1969. And spoiler alert, there will be a spoiler alert about the ending because it does sort of delve into a parallel reality or a parallel version of what actually happened. Sharon Tate and the LaBianca family were never murdered by Charles Manson. Now, I had no foreshadowing of knowing that that's what I was going to see. And nobody told me or warned me that that's what it was. So I'm sitting there through the movie, and it's kind of funny because my ears are ringing the whole damn time. Like, my ears have been ringing a lot lately. So by the time the movie ended, and the Manson kids, actually it was two girls and a guy, and the Manson two girls and a guy came into Leonardo DiCaprio's house, and Brad Pitt just happened to be there, like, totally drugged out on acid. And the kids were killed, and Brad Pitt's Pitbull, that's funny, did a number on one of the kids, the guy, and I'm not going to tell you where or how. I'm sure you can get the gist. I kind of wish I hadn't seen that, but then again, it is a Quentin Tarantino movie. Although it was one of the less violent Quentin Tarantino movies, which really isn't saying anything. But I'm sitting there looking at my cell phone that I have in airplane mode because I'm a good movie theater goer, and I'm like, shit, they don't have a lot of time to get to the murder of Sharon Tate. And I didn't even see him go to the LaBianca house, so I don't know what the heck goes on. So I was getting real antsy. And finally, in the end, all of Charles Manson's kids were killed by Brad and Leo. Brad laughing and giggling because he didn't believe that the guy had a gun, because he was too stoned to really care. It's called not giving a shit. But anyway, so it was just like really, really weird. And like I said, my ears were ringing through this entire film. So I'm just like, holy crap. Did we shift realities while I was sitting here watching this, and Sharon Tate and the LaBianca family never got killed in this reality? I would have flipped a bitch. But regardless, it was kind of, it was funny and it was weird. And then I asked my friends I went with, I'm like, oh, the movie was supposed to end like that, right? Like a parallel reality version of what happened. And they're like, yeah. But the thing that frustrated me about it is, like, in movies, and again, I think I might have said this, I am literally one of these people that I will sit and I will watch a movie and I will literally rewrite it in my head. Because I always want to, I'm a very big fan of Chekhov's gun. Now, Chekhov's gun is a device wherein if you show a gun on the screen, at some point, some character's got to use it or it's got to go off. And there were so many guns that didn't go off for me. Like, case in point, Leonardo DiCaprio spent like 45 minutes coughing and hacking up a lung, and maybe that was supposed to be arresting to us because nobody smokes anymore. Yeah, right? Leonardo DiCaprio was a 1960s smoking actor dude. Nobody paid attention to it, but he was crying all the time and just acting like his career was over because they wanted him to dress in ways that would make him unrecognizable. But I thought maybe there's something more to it because he was crying all the time too. And I thought, well, maybe he's got some dread disease that he's going to divulge. And nope, there was no foreshadowing of that. There was no foreshadowing to me that we were in an alternate reality, except for the fact that scenes dragged long and out and one scene didn't build on the other, which you really have to do. Like, whenever I write a play, if one scene doesn't build on another, then, I'll get a lot of critique for it. But again, it's Quentin Tarantino. He can do what he wants, I suppose. But even still, I seem to remember Quentin Tarantino movies of old as being a little bit more witty and scenes, logically following and going on the backs of one another. And again, the thing that frustrated me most was that there was hardly any Charles Manson. And yet, Brad Pitt, okay, see, this girl right here was underage, and she hitched a ride from Brad Pitt, and she and Brad were kind of, flirting in the beginning of the movie. And she hitched a ride with Brad Pitt, and he had to take her all the way out to this bumfuck farm somewhere, which it turns out was the farm, well, it was the, what do you call it, the, cult that Charles Manson was heading. Oh, but inconveniently or conveniently enough, Charles Manson was away for the weekend. Oh, how jet-setty. But it's like, dude, what's the point? And then they wasted like 10 or 20 minutes when Brad Pitt strong-armed his way into this house with this one rude hippie chick who said that there was a guy in the back that she was screwing, and then they were going to watch some TV show on Sunday night, but he was taking a nap because she didn't want him to fall asleep while they were watching the show because it got her upset. Nice girlfriend. Anyway, he was this old man that Brad Pitt said that he used to work with as a stuntman on a movie. So it took forever for him to get in there, and it felt like it was all this build-up, and that he was going to find something terrible back in this old man's room. I mean, aside from all these plates of just gross, like half-eaten food and flies flying all around, he didn't really find anything. The guy was asleep, as she said, and the story checked out as he said, and then he spent like 10 minutes trying to remind this guy of who he was, even though the guy was blind, and I was just kind of like, really? What is this doing to further the plot? And at a certain point, it stopped being that interesting to me. But that's my point, man. It's not just that movies are gratuitously and unforeshadowingly exploring alternate endings. They just don't make no sense. Like, the narrative flow is jacked in this reality. And we also had some reality residue, because in this movie they played Jose Feliciano's California Dreamin'. And it was at this point in the movie that I broke down crying because nothing else about it was sentimental in the least. And it was beautiful. And I kept singing, saying to myself, do it to me, Jose. Do it to me, Jose. Do it to me. Even though I could just barely hear through all the ringing in my ears. But that said, oh, and I should specify the California Dreamin' had him talking about, I stopped into a church and I began to pray. And that's funny too, because of course, as we well know, California Dreamin', well, this version did not come out too far behind the Mamas and the Papas. There we go. Yup. Dog dig. But the other cool thing was, too, back in January, this is what Hollywood Boulevard looked like. I had just come from doing a play a couple blocks down. It was this really cool Star Wars play, and they had it all done up, like above the Pantages Theater, like all the old school movies from back in the day. It's so cool. 2001 Space Odyssey 2001, Rod Steiger. Oh yeah, these lights we don't have in real life. None of those. Is it just me, or do the fluorescent lights, or the, what do you call it? These lights, they look more glowy and day glow than they do today. We don't have these kinds of colors today. And this one, this is an old movie theater. Romeo and Juliet, the movie du jour back in the day. But it was so funny because this is actually an old strip club. And they had this sign that said, this is a strip club, duh. We have all sexy girls and one ugly one. So sad. But in light of that, I hadn't been to a movie in a really, really, really long time. So this January when I went to see Vice, I saw like these 2 trailers. And they just had no cohesion to them either. Like, usually in a trailer, I can tell what it's supposed to be about or why I'm supposed to want to go see it or what the catch is. But there's this trailer for Gloria Bell, and I could swear it was just Gloria when I saw it the first time. But, I probably wasn't paying that much attention to it anyway. And it was just about this woman, and it looked kind of retro at first, like it was in the 80s, and it was just about this woman who, this guy. She met this guy at this nightclub, and then he kind of started following her, but then it looked like he fell away, and it was very, very anticlimactic looking, and I had no idea why or what story I was supposed to be seeing. And then there was another trailer like right after that. And you know what, guys? Since when did they start calling them trailers? I always knew them as previews. It wasn't until I moved out to California that they were always trailers, and that term never made any sense to me. But anyway, there was a Cate Blanchett film called Where'd You Go, Bernadette? And it was so weird because the preview started off as if it was about Cate Blanchett's daughter, and that her daughter was this magical, precocious teen or preteen. But then, come to find out, it was actually about Cate Blanchett's character going somewhere else. And this is what I'm talking about with like tweaky, weird narrative flows and economy and exposition. Because honestly, when you go see a movie and you fill a movie house, you want it to be 2 hours. Because if it's anything more than 2 hours, you don't get asses in the seats. Now, of course, with a Quentin Tarantino movie, that's a different story. Because Quentin Tarantino, they can take some liberties. But it just reminds me of my biggest personal Mandela effect, which is that of Frasier Crane's Apartment. Now, I had watched the Frasier show back when it was originally on NBC on actual broadcast TV. And this picture here, because they're going to talk about the view from Frasier Crane's Apartment, is exactly how I remember that view. The Space Needle is right out there. You can see it kind of, the outline, it's almost like a phantom-like outline, but through this camera it actually looks clearer. You can see the legs, you can see the UFO top, the city's kind of far away and farther back, and they even show it right here. Supposedly that's what the view was, but when I went to rewatch it again, I could not find hide nor hair of the Space Needle. And if you look, the city looks like it's much, much forward. Now, first of all, this is not good economy and exposition because, like, we're supposed to know we're in Seattle. We're supposed to just know at first glance. You've got to convey a really small bit of information in like 2 seconds to let the audience know where they are. But no more for this. Like, I could not find that dang Space Needle for the longest time. Come to find out, the Space Needle is now all the way over here, and just the legs are showing. As a matter of fact, usually this upper portion is obscured, so all you can see are the legs if you're on that particular angle. It's so weird. But it's weird too because this is just getting shifty to me. It's like, I don't understand where this came from. I never remember the Space Needle being that close or that far off to the side either. So just the way we convey things in movies and plot lines and even sets to convey narrative flow and to convey economy and exposition has gotten so strange to me. Okay, now here it is here. But oh my God, this thing is shifty all over the map. I've never seen it this shifty before, where the Space Needle is. Anyway, guys, this wasn't totally meant to be, again, about Frasier Crane, but look, it just looks like it's all different places from all different angles. So if you find anything that looks suspicious, or if you remember the Frasier Crane set and Space Needle being any different, and I know I'm harping on this, but man, it's just so... This is like one of the biggest personal Mandela effects for me, and it's not even that personal. But anyway, if you find anything, just let me know.